Hey guys, welcome back to We Watch Movie. I am Mike. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And part 3 of the Halloween Ends Paul Brad Logan novelization. If you've seen part 1 and part 2, you know what we're doing here. I did not expect for this to go, I thought 3 at the very most. We'd do 3 videos on it. We'll totally easily cover the book in that. But yeah, here we are. There's going to be a part 4. I went from, in this section, we'll be covering page 112 to page 204. And then there's a whole nother 100 pages left. And it's crazy because there's so much stuff that hasn't happened. We haven't gotten to Corey killing with the scarecrow mask on. We haven't gotten to the radio DJ death. There's a whole lot of stuff that we haven't even gotten to. And yet this book just covers an insane amount of stuff that was not in the movie. And again, just everything in this, the extra kills, the extra Michael, it just makes, it would have made the whole movie better. And I have a question for you guys. We asked this in the live stream last night. For those of you who didn't like the movie, if they added an extra hour to this movie, a whole hour, made it like a 2.5, 3 hour movie, right? But most of that stuff was Michael and the stuff in this book. Would you have been okay then with the romance stuff and the weird out there stuff that they did, the swings that they took, if they would have just given us like a whole bunch more Michael and shit like that as well? I would have liked that even better. Personally, I would have been fine with the movie being 2.5 hours long. I know that seems crazy for a Halloween movie, but then again, we're doing crazy shit with a Halloween movie to begin with Halloween Ends, so it would fit for me. Let me know what you guys think about that below. Would you accept the 2.5 hour movie if they gave us a lot more Michael than they did in Halloween Ends? But anyway. Starting from page 112, some of the stuff that's different between the book and the movie are expanded on. First off, 2 more bodies were discovered that weren't in the movie. Another 2 deaths actually happened, and this is Ryan Cooper and Kimberly Hartz. Kimberly being the one that Cameron was making out with, one of the friends of the people who was feeding his friend guacamole in all sorts of sexy ways in Halloween 2018. She's the one that kissed Cameron and started the whole fiasco that ended with Corey throwing Allison's iPhone in nacho cheese. And don't give me any shit about that supposedly being banana pudding, okay? Andy Matichak came on the show herself and said that that was nacho cheese, which I thought it was banana pudding, so kudos to her, who just has a giant bowl of nacho cheese. But anyways, yeah, these 2 people have been missing since Halloween night in 2019, and it tells their whole story. It tells how after that night at the dance, when Cameron shunned Kim for Allison, she met this Ryan Cooper guy who was in college in a band, I believe, called the Grasshoppers or whatever, this kind of punk rock dude. They fell in love, and throughout the whole situations that were happening in these movies, they were falling in love with each other, and they went back to the meat packing plant to celebrate their anniversary, and that's where Michael had been hiding. Michael had been hiding like in this crate section where the thing that would catch the blood from the animals as they fell down, that's where Michael had been hiding, and he'd been surviving barely on whatever animals would happen to scoot through there and fall through this hole that he could eat. So Michael was fucking roughing the shit out of it for a while after he crashed the trash dump truck that he stole after killing those 2 dudes. He crashed that truck into the woods. Into the woods! That's where he comes across, you remember in the last video we said that grisly death scene was discovered in a cabin in the woods. And I assume that Michael had done that, adding that to Michael's death kill. But there's a whole nother story there too. There was this little girl whose dad stole her from her mom, and he was a hardcore alcoholic. He just found this hunter's cabin out there to hide out. He tied the little girl down. He would beat her every single night. He was such a drunk that he could wake up and he would have to like force down canned meat just to keep himself alive. And then every night he'd get trashed and he would beat her, and he was a piece of shit. Now, Michael stumbles across this cabin, and there's this crazy scene where she knows Michael's out there but doesn't say anything, doesn't know it's Michael Myers obviously, but then he just appears one night, and like there's like a fire burning, and like the embers of the fire light up his mask, and the dude sees him and he's like freaking out, and then Michael doesn't even kill him himself. Michael grabs him by the throat and then hands the little girl a knife. The little girl kills him, and then Michael just walks away and leaves her alone. And it's this kind of same thing that happened between them as the same thing that happened between Corey and Michael in the cave. It was this not transference of power, but looking into Michael's eyes awoken some sort of evil inside it, and all the hate and the shit that had been done to her kind of turned into hate against the rest of the world, and she kills him, and then Michael just walks away. But Michael seems to unlock the evil inside of people when he looks at them. And there's a whole nother story in here as well about Dr. Loomis's time and Laurie's time back then. It just gets really fucking cool. And she even mentioned in the book that sometimes she would visit Dr. Loomis when she needed to talk to somebody, and there's a hilarious encounter where Dr. Loomis meets her in a Kmart parking lot, and she's like, he's still wearing his trench coat even though it's hot as shit outside. side, because that's just what Dr. Loomis would do. He was always straight to business. She said he would never come up to her and be like, "Hi, Lori, how are you?" It was always like, they don't know he's watching them. They don't know what he's capable of. And just the most Loomis shit you could think. This was pure Halloween 4-esque Loomis, the way that they paint this picture of him in here. But she says moms, when they would see him, would like grab their children and hold them close, or like get them away from him or whatever. Like they could sense the evil residue from Michael kind of leaking onto him. Because that was something else we talked about in part 2. Also, how Loomis says that the evil of Michael feels like it's consuming him, and that he can't sleep at night, and he feels like he's becoming a different person. But as we were talking about earlier, Loomis says that as well. He says, "I believe that Michael could be infectious to a susceptible mind." For instance, one of Michael's cellmates, apart from Nelson Christopher, apart from him, there was another cellmate of Michael's who killed 2 of his cellmates. And the cellmate's name was Carl, and he wore bloody gauze over his face, a nod to Halloween 4. But he did this when he killed them because he took a scalpel that he stole and tried to carve his own face off. "I want to take his face off." Carved his own face off, then wore the bloody gauze from Halloween 4, kills the 2 inmates, and then kills himself by stabbing himself in the throat with bandage scissors. Fucked up times in Texas. But by the time Michael showed up even to that cabin with the little girl, he was already really fucked up from his injuries. I mean, that guy's taken more of a pounding than a porn star's butthole at this point, and he's on his deathbed. So then he crawls away and he finds this abandoned meatpacking plant, as we talked about. He's hiding in this chute, barely surviving. And then Kim and Ryan show up to celebrate their anniversary at the meatpacking plant, bringing this whole thing full circle. There's a kill of him that's kind of off screen. You can tell he just walks around the corner of the meatpacking plant, and you can hear him like, gurgle, and then blood comes out. And then this awesome chase scene that takes place between Michael and her. I mean, it's a long ass chase scene. He chases her all the way through the woods. It's a long, drawn out at night chase scene, and you can just picture it. Like at one point, she runs into a dead end in this meatpacking plant, and Michael has taken her boyfriend's body and hung it on one of the meat hooks, and he presses the button, and the thing just drops right in front of her, and the body rips open and falls to the floor. Just the exact kind of scene that this movie fucking needed to not only please those who love indie and like the auteurism and don't have any problems, auteurism and don't have any problems with the romance and stuff, but to please like the Michael Myers specific fans. This one scene would have made just huge headway in that. As the body falls down, it rips in half, it falls to the floor, and then Michael appears out of the darkness, standing behind her, looking at her. I mean, just the perfect kind of Michael Myers chase and death scene that the movie really needed. But this whole scene leads to Michael in the tunnel, because she tries to run away. She goes into the cave. Michael chases her in there. He kills her. And then it explains that Nelson Christopher has been bringing Michael dead bodies as well. There was a panhandler that he hit over the head with a bottle and dragged her body in there. There was 2 teenage boys that were doing graffiti on the walls. And then he's like, "I be your God. I be your Michael Myers." And then he kills them, or knocks them out, takes them to Michael, and Michael eats him and survives on their bones, which is totally fucked up. And now we come full circle again, because we're right back to where we left off in part 2 of this. This was Corey going into the cave for the first time. And when Michael steps out and grabs him by the neck. Now, the deleted scene stuff that we talked about when we broke down the deleted scenes from Halloween Ends are in here. A little bit more Corey running around in the cave. Corey finding the bones of all these people that Michael has killed. But the way that they describe specifically, it was a very important point in the movie when Michael grabs him by the throat and you see what looked like almost a transference of power. There's been a bunch of debate about what that is, but this is one of the few parts I'll actually read word for word so you can kind of get the full gist of it. But I definitely, obviously, read the book because it paints all this shit in so much better detail than I ever could, and it's amazing. It says, Michael forced Corey's gaze into the dark eyes behind his mask, opening his mind to the essence of pure evil. Corey trembled as he felt an electric awakening, as the fear worked to excite him, as the hate he'd ingested turned outward. Michael's eyes stared back absently, and Corey's eyes slowly transformed into his. So, this is the same thing that happened with the little girl. At least in Paul Brad Logan's mind, which when we interviewed him, he said, he was like, I think David has his own interpretation, but this is the way I took it. I think that what happened here was Michael unlocked Corey's darkness inside. All the hate from his mom, from the world, that everybody was just locked away inside of him. And something about Michael's eyes, the blackness of his eyes, it did the same thing to Loomis in this book. It was starting to do the same thing to Loomis. It's done the same. It hit Corey fucking hard. I think Corey just had so much more hate and everything in his heart that it unlocked his worse than anybody else's, and that's why he became full on fucking cuckoo pants. So I think that kind of answers that question. That mystery's been answered for me at least. It also mentions that Michael wasn't letting him go or anything like that. It's that Michael was just too weak to finish the job. Like he may have saw something in Corey's eyes, but Michael wanted to kill him, but he was just so weak he couldn't, and he just dropped him and let him go. He's like, Chip, I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew. He was pumped up. He was revved up, man. So we get a lot more stuff about Frank's backstory and interaction with him at the bank. It's just more stuff that nothing really happens, but it's just, you're like, God damn, I love that Frank. That Frank Hawkins is just a sweet ass man. Everything he does is just like so sweet and over the top and nice. I love that fucking guy. He gets a guitar, and he mentions that in the movie, but it mentions in here that he actually worked his way up. He can play Basket Case by Green Day, which is fucking hilarious, especially considering how we even told Paul Brad Logan when he was on the show, we were like, dude, you look just like Billy Joel from Green Day. And then to find this little nugget in this book that Frank Hawkins learned Basket Case by Green Day on the guitar, it's just too goddamn perfect. There's a lot of heart and soul, man, in this book that you can tell comes from the writer of the book. Just some really personal stuff, the way the diner is described or any of that stuff. It's really personal, and you can tell, and I love it, man. It's awesome. It's cool that some of that stuff seeped into the movie as well. There's a whole bunch more stuff about Joan. I think I called her Joanne the whole video last time, but there's a whole bunch more stuff about her, including her freaking out. They showed a little bit of it in the movie, like when she would freak out at Corey, but this is just, it extends it. Like there's a scene where she runs out of the house and she's like freaking out, and she like talks to the little bunnies that she has. She's like, no, it's not a joke. She's driving around town screaming at people. She goes to like a Hobby Lobby and yells at them for putting out Halloween stuff. She's like, some people don't like this Halloween stuff. Some people want bunnies. I want bunnies. And like ran out, got in a wreck chasing after Corey. Just a whole fucking mess of stuff that adds to Joan's character. And she's just frightening as goddamn be. And then in the diner scene with the whole, I like the match, that whole shit going on when Doug Mulaney walks up, it also explains that on the night he was the one who arrested Corey the night of Jeremy's death and like put a fist into his side and was like, I'll fucking blow your brains out right now, you disgusting piece of shit. Thought that he did it, threatened to kill him. He was like, I'll just say you came after me. It really paints an extra picture of Doug Mulaney, the huge fucking cunt. And the way that they explain the Michael... I'll just read it to you. It says, his body crackled as his posture resituated itself. Corey watched as Michael slowly returned to the evil shape he'd once embodied. Perfectly upright and still, a cold killing machine. Corey had brought him back to life. So the way it's explained in the book is he was like cracking back into fucking posture. Like when you wake up after, working out the day before or something, or you just slept too long, when you wake up and crack your back. This was Michael like fucking just getting his shit, so he wasn't really coming. But even when we were talking to Paul Brad Logan, he said, he was like, David came up to me when we filmed that scene and was like, is this too much? And he was like, no, I fucking love it. Which I agree with. I think it's cool. I think it's provocative. I think it gets the people going. Like, did that man just jizz in his pants? Is he getting the power of the sun? Like, what the fuck is going on right now? The more he kills, the more he transcends. And the further we get into this book, the more it transcends the movie. So that leaves us at page 204. One more video to go. This will be a 4-parter after all, because there's just so much cool shit to talk about. How do you guys feel about it so far? And again, if you could add an extra hour to the movie and it was mostly shit like we've talked about here, the extra death scenes, and it was all Michael stuff, would you have been down for a 2.5-hour movie? Comment down below, let me know. Thank you guys for watching this with me. I'll try to get the next video up by next week, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thanks for taking the time to bullshit around with me about movies today. I hope you guys have an awesome one. Halloween never ends, suck my fucking dick, and I don't really care what Blumhouse fucking says. Put him in a box or suck a fucking cock. You can say he's dead, but we all know he's not, yeah. So let's go trick-or-treating, let's go fucking drinking, let's all go rent Pumpkinhead on VHS, cause Halloween